Magic, White and Black, the science on finite and infinite life. The beings of the spiritual plane are such as have once been men. Their constitution is beyond the comprehension of those that are not their equals, and their ethereal forms in a state of perfection we cannot conceive. Having outgrown the necessity of residing in a form, they enter the state of the formless, approaching evermore the universal mind, from which the power called man emanated at the beginning. We may look upon a personal man as a single note in the great orchestra composing the world, and upon a Dhyan Chohan as a full accord, or a compound of notes in the symphony of the gods. There may be unharmonious compositions of notes in music, and there are evil spiritualities as there is darkness in contradistinction to light, because a high grade of intelligence may be used for vile purposes. But the good spirituality cannot be conquered by evil, because it is protected by wisdom, which is essentially good, and of which evil is but the reverse. There are good and evil spiritual beings, and either class may possess a great deal of knowledge and power, but only the good, that is to say, kind and benevolent powers, can be considered wise, because wisdom means a union of knowledge and love, from which the highest powers spring. To be wise is to be good and beautiful and true. Evil spiritualities may be very strong, but they cannot overcome the good ones, because they lack wisdom, and wisdom is itself the divine will of God. What is a spirit? Nothing else but a thought rendered alive by the will, a ray of light receiving its impulse by the fire hidden therein. A thought without will is unsubstantial, like an image in a mirror. Made active by the will, it assumes life, substance, and form. We all are spirits as long as we have the will, but when the will leaves a man, his life goes with it, and his body, the shadow, fades away. The realm of the soul is the realm of the emotions. Emotions are not merely the results of physiological processes depending on causes coming from the physical plane, but they belong to a form of life on the astral plane. They often come and go without any apparent cause. The state of the weather or circumstances over which we have no control may cause certain emotions independently of our state of physical health. A person entering a room where everyone is laughing is liable to participate in the common emotion without knowing the cause of the hilarity. A whole crowd may be swayed by the intense emotion of a speaker, although they may not fully understand what he says. One hysterical woman in a hospital ward may create an epidemic of hysteria among the other women, and a whole congregation may become excited by the harangue of an emotional exhorter, no matter whether his language is foolish or wise. A sudden accumulation of emotion or energy on the astral plane may kill a person as quickly as a sudden explosion of powder. We hear of persons who are transfixed by terror or paralyzed by fear. In such cases, the astral consciousness, having become abnormally active at the expense of the consciousness on the physical plane, the activity of life on the physical plane may cease, and the affected person may faint or perhaps die. All forms come into existence according to certain laws. The solar microscope shows how, in a solution of salt, a center of matter is formed, and how to that center its kindred forces are attracted, crystallizing around it and becoming solid and firm. Each kind of salt produces the peculiar crystals that belong to its class and no other. However often the process may be repeated. In the vegetable kingdom, we see that the seed of one plant will attract to itself those forces which it requires to produce a plant resembling its parent. The seed of an apple tree can produce nothing else but an apple tree, and an acorn can grow into nothing else but an oak. The principal characteristics of an animal will be those that belong to its parents, and the external appearance of a man will correspond more or less to that of the race and family in which he was born. As every mathematical point in space may develop into a living and conscious and visible being, after once a certain center of energy, a germ, has been formed, so in the invisible realm of the soul, astral forms may come into existence wherever the necessary conditions for their growth exist. In the same manner as an active motion on the physical plane may attract the universally diffused matter around a common center, likewise an active emotion on the astral plane may crystallize around a thought into an invisible but nevertheless substantial entity, which may have an existence of long or short duration according to the intensity with which the forces composing it are concentrated upon its center. As the forms on the physical plane correspond to the characters of the forces prevailing upon that plane, so the forms on the astral plane are expressions of the characteristics of the prevailing emotions on that plane. They may manifest themselves either in beautiful or in horrible shapes, because every form is only the symbol or the expression of the character which it represents. The forms in the mineral kingdom are expressive of forces acting in straight and angular lines. Those of the vegetable kingdom represent radiating and curved lines. The animal forms are expressions of forces acting on the astral plane, and the inhabitants of the astral plane may resemble visible animal or human forms. In those forms which belong exclusively to the astral plane, the higher spiritual energies are not active. They may have a consciousness of their own and realize their existence, but under ordinary circumstances they have no more intelligence than animals, and cannot act intelligently and in accordance with reason. They follow their blind attraction as iron is attracted to a magnet, and wherever they find an excessive amount of emotion evolved by a human being, they are attracted thither as to a common center, and their accumulation increases the activity of that center and increases the size of its sphere. We therefore often see that if one emotion is not controlled in the beginning, it may grow and become uncontrollable. Some people have died of grief, and some others of joy. But if these unintelligent forms are infused with the principle of intelligence proceeding from man, they become intelligent and act in accordance with the dictates of the Master, from which they receive their will and intelligence, and who may employ them for good or for evil. Every emotion that arises in man may combine with the astral forces of nature and create a being which may be perceived by persons possessing abnormal faculties of perception as an active and living entity. Every sentiment which finds expression in word or action may call into existence a living entity on the astral plane. Some of these forms may be very enduring according to the intensity and duration of the thought that created them, while others are the creations of one moment and vanish in the next. There are numerous cases on record in which some person or other, having committed some crime, is described as having been persecuted for years by some avenging demon, who would appear objectively and disappear again. Such demons may be, and perhaps can be, nothing else but the products of the involuntary action of the imagination of their victims, but they are nevertheless real to the latter. They may be called into existence by memory and remorse, and their images existing in the mind may become objective by fear, because fear is a repulsive function. It instinctively repulses the object of which a man is afraid, and by repelling the image from the center towards the periphery of the sphere of mind, that image may be rendered objective.